Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Oh, quickly, the narrative's losing steam. People are starting to question the legitimacy of everything that's going on in our great leader, the face of the whole thing. Quickly, let's regain control of the narrative. Let's inject the masses with a nonsense fluff piece article. A lot of you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, the title and the thumbnail probably gave that one away. Time Magazine 2022 Person of the Year is none other than Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, this whole Person of the Year thing is just such a ridiculous concept to begin with, but this one in particular feels so forced, so contrived. It feels calculated and timed exactly like I was alluding to with what I was saying earlier, where the narrative started to fall apart for the globalist uniparty's new little money laundering endeavor started to fall, and all of a sudden, quick, hit the people with Time Person of the Year Volodymyr Zelensky, continue pushing the he's a hero narrative. It's yet again another distraction, more emotionally manipulative tools to continue enabling the war machine, which you're paying for with no transparency and no accountability. And that is basically just the gist of what we got to talk about in this video. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here you go. Time Magazine 2022 Person of the Year Volodymyr Zelensky. And instantly, this one just doesn't sit right with me. A lot of people want to have this fairy tale view of what's going on. They apply zero nuance to the subject at all. Ukraine is this beautiful, perfect place with puppies, rainbows, a democratic utopia, and Russia is this evil, authoritarian, invading state. When of course we know that that's definitely not the reality. You know, as I continue to maintain, I'm not on Team Ukraine. That doesn't mean I'm on Team Russia either. They're two corrupt nations that I have nothing to do with, who are essentially fighting over land, and it seems as though neither side wants to pursue a diplomatic or democratic solution to the problem, and so they're both to blame when it comes to the escalation of violence. Rather than allowing the people in the Donbass region or the Crimea region to vote on their fate, whether they want to separate or not, what side they want to be on, you have leaders on both sides who would rather sacrifice lives, who would rather start a war than find a peaceful solution to this land dispute. And there is so much propaganda that people just fall for. And the Western media, frankly, is to blame because they're the ones who are pushing it. They're the ones who are promoting it. They seem to have a horse in this race, and that horse is Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, I don't know exactly what the connection is with the elites in Ukraine. I mean, clearly, we know there's a connection to whatever is going on in Washington. The Biden family, I mean, it just goes on. But when it comes to the globalist, elitist ruling class, I don't exactly get the interest. But apparently, it's really important to them to get involved in this land dispute, that they've mobilized the entire Western media establishment to push non-stop propaganda, enabling politicians to send billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine without the people's consent. It's honestly unreal. You know, Joe Biden and other Western leaders will maintain that we are not at war, but they are literally spending a combined hundreds of billions of dollars getting involved in this war. Everything but putting boots on the ground. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like we're certainly at war. Because if you think about it, if we weren't sending upwards of $100 billion to Ukraine, well then it probably would have ended by now. There probably would have been a diplomatic solution. Volodymyr Zelensky would probably have his back against the wall and he wouldn't have a choice but to do what's best for the people and stop the violence. Come to a compromise. And the idea that one side is absolutely unequivocally correct and on the right side and the other side is evil, fascist, and has absolutely no concerns or legitimate grievances which should be heard, I find very hard to believe. You know, there's generally two sides to every story. The idea that one side might be more morally in the right than the other, I mean, it's possible, but it doesn't mean that one side is absolutely unequivocally 100% correct and the other side is 0% correct, 100% wrong and evil and should be totally condemned. And a lot of people have a lot of questions as to what the actual nuances are, what the real situation, what the cause of all of this chaos in Eastern Europe is, and we don't get answers. All we get is an approved narrative shoved down our throats. All we get is Time Magazine Person of the Year Volodymyr Zelensky. And you know what we certainly don't get is any transparency into how money is being spent. Marjorie Taylor Greene vows to audit every US dollar sent to Ukraine.
They treat Zelensky like he's governor of the 51st state of the United States, and they act like Ukraine is part of our country. And I absolutely find that repulsive. Now, we've said all along that we are sorry for what the Ukrainian people are going through, that we're against the invasion. But Ukraine, it needs to be reminded to everyone, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. And we should not be defending Ukraine. We should not be sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. We should not be equipping them with our military equipment. This is a war that we shouldn't be involved in, especially while we're ignoring the invasion at our southern border. It's outrageous. I introduced a privilege resolution that was heard in the Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday, and every single Democrat voted against this privilege resolution, which was to audit Ukraine. And it was a very simple resolution asking the president, asking the Department of Defense, asking the State Department for basically the receipts and where is the money going? Because every single American deserves that answer. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you deserve to know where United States tax dollars are going in Ukraine.
And speaking of the American people's questions not being answered, there's no transparency or no honesty on the actual nuance of the situation itself, the geopolitical conflict, and there's certainly no transparency when it comes to how the money is being spent. The rough number off the top of my head as to how many taxpayer dollars have been sent to Ukraine, I think is roughly $105 billion. That number may be incorrect. I mean, I've kind of lost track at this point. So many billions have been sent, but it's somewhere around that ballpark figure. That's a lot of money that could do a lot of good for American citizens. Don't Americans deserve to know what their taxpayer dollars are being put to use for? Especially when you see these crazy stories of Ukrainian officials crossing the border with like $25 million in cash and having their dollars seized, especially when you learn what Volodymyr Zelensky's net worth is. And when you have an understanding of all the corruption happening in the Ukrainian government, we've seen it firsthand with the whole Ukraine Hunter Biden, Joe Biden connection. And so what it feels like's going on here is, don't pay attention to all of the money, don't pay attention to the facts, don't even question the official narrative or anything that's going on in Ukraine, pay attention to Time Magazine's Person of the Year, Volodymyr Zelensky. He's a hero. It seems like a distraction, it seems like propaganda, and it's even worse considering the timing. Volodymyr Zelensky, what was it, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, pushing a fake news, garbage, bogus story of a supposed Russian missile killing 2 people in NATO member Poland, condemning the Russians, calling it an escalation of violence, and calling for retaliation. When of course it turns out that the missile that landed in Poland killing 2 civilians was a Ukrainian explosive, and Volodymyr Zelensky has yet to retract his statement on the topic. A man who pushed straight up fake news, accusing the Russians of attacking a NATO member state, then calling on NATO allies to retaliate against Russia. Essentially a man who used fake news to try to egg on, I guess, World War III. And a couple weeks later, you're just supposed to accept that Volodymyr Zelensky is not to be questioned. And even beyond that, he's the greatest person of the year on the entire planet? I'm just not buying it. Call me whatever you want to call me, a conspiracy theorist. Some people would want to call me a Russian spy, but very simply, I'm none of those things. I'm just not buying it. What people want are peace talks, and it's funny how Volodymyr Zelensky was willing to negotiate and re-enter peace talks when it looked like Democrats were about to lose the Senate and the House. And then as things slowly started to shift the other way, all of a sudden, Volodymyr Zelensky's stance on the issue also started to shift away. But anyways, I'm getting distracted. The point is, I'm not buying any of it. It seems like a bunch of propaganda. It's the war machine that wants to continue funneling and laundering your taxpayer dollars. As I stated, I'm not on Team Russia. I am not on Team Ukraine. I'm on Team I don't want to be involved, stop wasting money. And I'm not going to worship Volodymyr Zelensky as some sort of deity. That's it. Those are my thoughts on the issue. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.